This episode is also available in 3D. For more information, go to funnyhacks.com/C3D.
This is a technical episode for 3DSync and other 3D improvements. Now, if you've been playing around getting 3D footage from two cameras, now the first problem that you will have come across is the fact that, right, you've got these two bits of film, but actually getting them all synced up so the same thing is happening from both streams at exactly the same time is actually quite tricky. Now, one of the tricks which I've found has been really good is to start both cameras as closely together as possible. You get like so, and then you're still going to be a little bit off with each camera. So what you do is you then get the audio from the left camera coming into one track, and then you get the audio from the right camera coming into the other track, and then you have a look and you compare, and you'll see some similarities and things happening there. And so then you work out how many frames you need to chop off one of the cameras to get them pretty closely into sync. You'll find that you have to sort of make it fairly approximate, because they're not going to... You'll see things are not happening at exactly the same moment, and so therefore your frames will be synced up, but your audio might be slightly off, which means that reality is actually very slightly out of sync between the two. So you may still get, when there's fast movements, you may still get some separation, but it should be fairly good. So, guidelines. When you're doing fast motion, I took some beautiful footage of some birds flying, and it was basically this, some seagulls, and they were trying to get some food, and I was basically standing upwind with the food, and so they were flying, hovering right in front of me for the food. And so I got all this gorgeous footage, all beautiful contrast, beautiful focus, beautiful everything, except I took it in 30 frames a second, and the birds were flapping their wings so fast that although it was crystal clear, the two cameras were badly out of sync, and it was sort of, what was happening half a frame between them. And so in one frame the wings are like this, and then on the other camera the wings are like this, and that was just half a frame difference. If I was to subtract another frame, then it would be off by the same amount but in different positions. So that was incredibly frustrating. I was so sad I couldn't use that footage. So something that you can do to reduce that problem is to capture in a higher frame rate. So my cameras can capture in 60 frames a second, but I have to lose a little bit of quality, a little bit of resolution, so I go from 1080p down to 720p. When I'm happy to make that trade-off, I do that. Now, what I have done since then is I've made a modification to the cameras. Now, this, for me, was quite a risky episode, because although the chances of something going wrong are fairly low, the impact of something going wrong is very high, because I can't afford to replace these cameras at the moment. So when you're taking risks, doing things on this show, take both sides of the equation into account, because if you can't afford to replace something, it doesn't matter how small the chances of it happening are. I mean, well, you have to multiply it. One way of doing it is you multiply the probability by the impact, and then that gets sort of the factor you should take into account. Anyway, everything went without a hitch. I modified it, so what I did is I put a couple of sockets on the outside, and then I had a wire going inside to the camera. I found the pins which I need to short to make the footage start and stop, and then I just made a little cable which plugs into those sockets, and with a button which is then mutually shorts out both cameras at the same time, and so therefore it starts both cameras recording at the same time. Now, something that I did with this is that I wired the two cameras. Although they're on one switch, I've used opposite sides of the switch, and so the idea is that both cameras are isolated 100% of the time. This gives me really good results, except sometimes the cameras will be, maybe one's doing a little bit of maintenance, or it's just going into power save or something like that, just while the other one's still active. So if I hit the button, although both have received that press at the same time, it may take a few moments of difference before it actually happens. So quite often, doing something like I keep the camera zoomed out all of the time, so one of the things I found really good is to just force it zoom out slightly. It receives a key press, therefore takes it out of power save and makes it ready to go, but it doesn't actually do anything that affects my picture, and so therefore I can push that button after that and they both start at exactly the same time, or close enough to it that it's nicely usable. Hopefully that made sense to you. If it didn't, leave a question. If you've done something similar, leave a video response, and I'll see you next week.